1969. The Eagle touches down. Minutes later, astronaut Neil Armstrong becomes the first man to set foot on the moon.
It's one small step for man, one giant leap for mankind.
Putting a man on the moon. A pretty amazing accomplishment. But have you ever thought about how one actually gets to the moon? I mean, just point your rocket at the moon and blast off, right? No. There's a little more to it than that. In fact, the one thing you can't do is point your rocket at the moon. Flying to the moon is a little like taking a vacation. First, you have to decide how big a vehicle you need. And of course, that depends on where you're going, how many people you're taking, and how much stuff you need to bring with you. No way, you're not taking that. Put it back. For their trip to the moon, NASA took 3 men. And their vehicle was the massive Saturn V rocket. Now, there's one major difference with traveling to the moon. There are no gas stations along the way where you can refuel. So right from the start, you have to carry all the fuel you're going to need to get you there and back. Now, a good vacation requires that you know exactly where you're going. But flying to the moon is not the easiest route to plan. There are a few complications. Imagine for a moment that Mike is the moon, I'm the Earth, and this football is a rocket. Now, if Mike's just standing still, I can easily get the rocket to him. But that's not how things are in the real world. Nothing is standing still. Everything is in motion. The moon is revolving around the Earth. The Earth is revolving around the sun. The Earth is also rotating on its axis, and so is the moon. And of course, you don't want to land on the moon in darkness, so you have to arrive when the sun is shining on your landing site, or when Mike is facing the ball. Lining up all these variables requires incredible timing. And that's why you can't just aim your rocket at the moon, because it won't be there when you arrive. Since the moon is moving, you have to calculate where it will be when your spacecraft gets there. You have to intercept the moon, not chase after it. Okay, we got fuel.
Check.
Supplies.
Check.
Directions.
Check.
Everyone's been to the bathroom? Then let's go. You might be surprised to learn that flying to the moon requires 2 launches. You've seen the first one. It's the noisy one that gets the rocket off the ground. The purpose of the first launch is to power the rocket into orbit around the Earth. After a few revolutions to check that everything is still working, the astronauts prepare to leave orbit. This is where the second launch takes place.
3, 2, 1, ignition. Confirm ignition, and the thrusters go.
Now the spacecraft is finally on its way to the moon.
Oh, you better believe it. It's like we're climbing straight out, Joe. It's a fantastic sight. You're going about 6,000 feet a second.
Once the spacecraft breaks away from the Earth, something very surprising happens. We're trying to conserve fuel, right? So what's the best way to do that? How about turning off the engine? Well, that's exactly what the astronauts do. They turn their engine off, and they coast. They can do that because in space there's no air or friction to slow them down. And that's how they get to the moon. They just get going really fast, and they coast. Now, there's only one problem with coasting. We can't stop. If we stop, we'll lose all our momentum, and we don't have enough fuel to get going again. So somehow we're going to have to land on the moon without stopping.
How do we do that?
You guys are going to have to jump out.
While we're still moving?
You got it. And that's exactly what happens when the astronauts reach the moon. The command module coasts into orbit, while the smaller lunar module makes the trip down to the surface. And once they land on the moon, it's time to see the sights.
Hey! Meow!
But unfortunately, when you travel to the moon, there's always one last problem: getting home.
My golly, this time goes fast.
To return to the Earth, the astronauts on the surface have to link up with the orbiting command module. But they only have enough fuel for one attempt, so their timing has to be perfect. To make the spacecraft as light as possible, any excess equipment gets left behind, including the landing gear.
Okay, 30 seconds. Take off your 1,500 feet. Stand by for contact.